Hello and welcome to the Propelling Business Excellence podcast. Today I'm very excited. I have Jeff Roberts as the CEO and founder of Innovation Vista. So, welcome, Jeff, and thank you very much for being here. Why don't you get started? Tell us a little bit more about your company, who your customers are, and what do you do? Thank you very much
Well,
again for joining us.
well, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. So Innovation Vista is about 5 years old now. We are an IT strategy consulting firm.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is we provide C-level services. Our consultants are all former CIOs, CTOs, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that are now consulting. We have over 400 consultants in our network that we look to subcontract into each and every project that we land for clients. That lets us really match the very best consultant for a client's industry, for their vision on what they want to do with technology, and make sure that the person we send them walks in the door or joins their Teams calls and Zoom calls immediately knowing their business model, knowing a lot probably about their competitors and
Mhm.
what is working in their industry. So that's our model. We do assessments, strategic roadmaps. We do project leadership of strategic projects like mergers, acquisitions, large system implementations that need really that C-level skill set.
Mhm.
Um, and then in some cases, we are asked to come in and advise on an ongoing basis. If a company has a head of IT, we advise them. If they don't have a head of IT, we serve in that capacity, often on a part-time or short-term process. So kind of a whole sort of spectrum of services, but it all relates to the expertise and the insights and guidance that former successful C-level executives can offer.
That's great to know. Thank you so much. I know everything is going in AI direction and whatnot. So, is a majority of your work, are they related to AI or are there other things that you're doing? Give us a little bit more flavor of that.
Yeah, a great question. It's a growing percentage. I don't know that it's crossed 50%. It might be something like 40% of what
Okay.
we're doing relates to AI strategy, starting AI programs for clients. We often are approached with this sort of challenge of, our board of directors says we need to be doing AI. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to do it. Can
Do
you help
AI.
us? Right. So some of that help is just understanding how to think about AI. There's a lot of hype out there, but there is a lot that's being done successfully with AI. So we help clients really set their initial AI strategy, the way they're going to fund it, the way they're going to think about it. Depending on an industry, in some spaces, it's really just an efficiency and a value add sort of capability.
Hmm.
In some industries, it can create competitive advantage that actually leads to market share, and you can take business from your competitors if you have AI capabilities that they can't match. In some industries, honestly, it is a survive and thrive kind of proposition where AI is already disrupting those sectors. And if companies don't quickly catch up or surpass their competitors, they are at risk of really being put out of business because of that disruption. So there's a wide spectrum there. Really getting the strategy set is step one. How do you think about it? What kind of criteria are you going to apply when you are considering potential AI projects? What funding level or what's the bar that you're going to use on deploying capital for AI alongside or really in competition with all the other things that businesses might deploy capital for? To expand and other purposes. So helping them get that set really helps set the stage for them talking about specific projects.
Hmm.
And we often are asked to lead those as well, especially early on for organizations that haven't ever run a successful AI project. The value right now of someone who's been around the block is incredibly high. And a track record of successful AI projects is just extremely valuable. It really is for every skill set, but in AI particularly, there are fewer people who have succeeded at AI than there are in a lot of other skill sets around IT in particular. So having that kind of experience among our 400 plus consultants, we see as just a tremendous strategic advantage and a value proposition for our clients.
Yeah. So what are the other percent of work? So you said 50% or less is AI, and then what else?
Yeah. Yeah. So the other, I guess, would be more traditional IT functions.
Okay.
So we really, there's a spectrum of why clients come to us. Some of them are feeling pain with their IT. They have real problems. Maybe it's system crashes, maybe it's information security breaches, ransomware attacks, very serious, very sort of day-to-day operational challenges that we need to help them stabilize their IT.
Mm-hmm.
That for us is step one. We talk about the maturity curve that we try to take clients through. It starts with stabilizing their IT. From there, we move to optimizing. So we have some clients that, their systems are not crashing, but neither are they really integrated together. The numbers from one system don't always match to the numbers from another system, even when they
Okay.
should. Things are not integrated like they should. They're not treating their data as an enterprise-wide data
Uh-huh.
set. Each
Okay.
and every system has its own reports. So that's a big part of optimizing is, let's bring this together as an enterprise platform that each system is part of a whole that is put together and is very coherent together. And then the final step for us after stabilizing and optimizing is monetizing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is where we find opportunities to drive efficiencies. And in many cases, we take a lot of pride and excitement in finding opportunities to drive market share and revenue as well. Some of that is just taking business from competitors by offering competitive advantage in the form of IT capabilities. Some of it is actually creating new revenue streams by creating data products, analytics products, things of that nature that can be sold to a completely different set of customers
Mm-hmm.
than the company's ever dealt with before. So there's a wide spectrum of what happens there, from feeling pain to seeking gain. I
Right.
guess that's kind of the spectrum we work in, but all things IT, especially around the strategy and the leadership services that C-level executives can offer.
And who are your customers? If you can define the size and what industry
Yeah.
you're looking at.
I would say generally mid-size,
Okay.
from 50 million up to a billion or a little more. That range tends to have enough scale. There tends to be enough opportunities where the cost of our services to a client is more than offset by the value that we can bring to the table in terms of savings or revenue opportunities. We
Mm-hmm.
have helped some clients that are smaller than 50 million, even startups that are pre-revenue. But in those cases, they are all pretty well funded and they have aspirations to get to that kind of scale. So they want the C-level consultant in the room making those early architectural decisions,
Mm-hmm.
negotiating contracts, making the first early key new hires for the organization, things like that. So they set a very solid foundation.
I see. So tell us a little bit more about, what are the misconceptions about running a business? I know you have been running for quite some time now. You have 400 plus consultants. So what would you say?
Yeah, there are a lot, and there's a lot of great books written on many of these topics. I found the misconception or the surprises, I guess, from when I started my business were the things that people told me would be surprising. which is the amount of time, the amount of effort, and the challenge in branding, marketing, and selling your services. I came to this business, I founded it 5 years ago after a career as a W-2 CIO for five different mid-sized companies. So I always had someone in the org chart of my employers that was looking for our customers at each and every business. And I didn't give them much thought. I was involved in supporting them from a technology perspective, but it wasn't until I started my own company that I realized how difficult that is. Explaining what you do,
Hmm.
setting yourself apart from all the other people who do what you do, or in our case, people who do similar things, right? There are hundreds of thousands of IT consulting firms. And there's, of course, a huge difference between offering C-level services on assessments and roadmap and being an interim CIO versus hosting a company's production systems and supporting their users on a desk side basis. But in the market, people don't always grasp those differences. And so
Right.
I really have to stand out from hundreds of thousands of other firms. So I found that is the misconception is that is very doable. That is just a matter of spending a little bit of time and determining what your branding is going to be and running with it. And I think what I've found instead is I had a starting point. I ran with that for a while. I got some feedback. I realized that I was still confusing people. I retrofitted it. I tried again. I tried again. I tried again. And I'm probably on the 17th version of our headlines on our
Yeah.
website and the branding that's on our LinkedIn pages. And all of that is evolving all the time. And I've just learned that there's not one answer. The market changes. The way that we explain ourselves needs to change. And the way that we stand out from competitors probably also will have to change through time as well. And that is harder than I ever thought it would be.
So, speaking of this unique value proposition, a lot of my customers also struggle with that. I was at another conference and they were all talking the same thing. I'm connecting science and technology. And some of my biotech clients were like, what are they really saying? I have no idea. They all seem to do the same thing. But but have you defined your unique value proposition? Are you in the progress of doing that? Do you know how do you stand
Yes.
out from your competition?
Yes. Well, I think yes. And so
Okay.
our main distinctives versus the other firms that specialize in C-level services is our structure running a network of consultants instead of a bench. And what I mean by that is most of our competitors, really all of them that I know of, have hired full-time consultants. So they put them on W-2 and then they find projects for them to work on. All right, very sort of standard operating model. What that leads to, we believe, is a square peg and a round hole kind of problem where uh, when a new client walks in the door, they are not assigned the very best consultant. They are assigned the one who is sitting on the bench that doesn't already have a client that they're taking care of.
Hmm.
And that person is probably really smart, but are they the very best fit for that client? Likely they're not. So our subcontracting model, where we have vetted, well, really we have vetted over, I think it's 1,300 consultants at this point that we've spoken to, in order to select the 400 that we
Hmm.
have in our network. And that selection is made based on their professionalism, their experience, their success in the C-level roles that they have had. Some people have the title and don't succeed, and they're exited from that title, within months or a few years. That says a lot versus someone who has had that role at multiple companies for multiple years. They've had real successes under their belt. That's who we look for. And the idea of subcontracting, it probably hurts me in terms of margin. I know it does. But what it allows us to do is make the very best match for each and every client from among that network. And we're the only people who do it that way. So I feel like that is a tremendous value. And then the other thing that sets us apart really is our focus on top line impact. A lot of IT firms talk about efficiencies, automation, improving margin, taking costs out because you've created
Automated.
systems that automate these processes, et cetera. And that's all good. And we like efficiencies too. But very few talk about revenue and the business landscape of competition and market share, and how is your offering perceived versus your competitors. And if you enhance your technology, does that move the needle? In some industries, the answer is absolutely yes. And you can steal business from your competitors. You can offer better services or products than your competitors by creating unique technology. So we help clients find those opportunities, and even to create brand new revenue streams that didn't exist before with
Okay,
technology capabilities.
I
So
see.
that focus, along with our subcontracting, we're the only firm that does it that way, and I feel like that lets us really drive value in unique ways for our clients.
Okay, that's great. And I know it's quite a lot of work you mentioned also, right? Doing with marketing, sales that you were not expecting to do when you started your business. And that's the same problem I see with a lot of other startups as well. How do you maintain a work-life balance?
Mm,
Do you have any, or
yeah.
you just continue to work?
Yeah, it is different. It is different from the W-2 world that I came from. And there's pros and cons. On the con side, I do sometimes miss the days where I could just take paid vacation and I could put on an auto reply on my email and not worry that I was going to lose an opportunity or something like that if I didn't respond. Those days are gone. So I never can fully unplug, I guess. Um, but on the other hand, I have more flexibility than I ever had as an entrepreneur than I did as a W-2 CIO. And we take advantage of that a lot with respect to
Mhm.
travel. So, for example, I'm speaking to you today from Dallas, Texas. I
Okay.
live in Houston, but my wife and I are visiting up here. She grew up in this area. And, she will have the opportunity, we both will, to see her mother and stepdad and so forth. I never would have been able to sort of travel and still run the business
Uh-huh.
to this extent, not just within the state of Texas, but, coast to coast within the country. Our kids live in different markets, so we take advantage of that. And we even travel internationally, and I keep the business running from wherever we are. Sometimes time zone is a challenge, depending on how far away that is, but we find a way, and that's something that would have absolutely been impossible without taking paid vacation. And so I enjoy that part of it, and the fact that we can travel so much and really still keep things moving.
That's great. And what does your 1 to 3 year future business plan look like?
So I think right now, organic growth. I've talked to several people on both sides of a equation on potentially acquiring or being acquired, and sort of combining with another entity. Um, being the acquirer, it is going to take a very unique match, and I have not found that match. We are very unique in the way we do this. And I think there would be a lot of challenges to acquire or merge even with an organization that operated more traditionally.
Hmm.
and on the side of the coin where we're being acquired, I'm not interested in that personally because I still know that there are things that we can do to continue to grow. So I really don't need the capital. I don't need the scale of someone else in order to help me grow. I just need to keep doing what I'm doing.
Mhm. So I know we talked about this informally about the revenue, etc. So we talk about goals and entrepreneurship. They're kind of lined together, right? Entrepreneurship is about having smart goals and making them happen. Do you
Yes.
have any sort of any those? I know you're saying that it's yeah, go ahead. You want to respond
Yeah, well, we talked a
to
little bit
that?
before
Yes,
about this, but before the podcast
yes.
here. Um, for better or worse, my thought process on this is to set goals on the things that I can control
Control,
more
yeah.
directly. The things that I have found are reflective of the success of our branding and marketing campaigns. So,
Mhm.
in other words, as I'm measuring the effectiveness of an advertising campaign, I look at how many prospect and client conversations did that lead to, as opposed to how much revenue did that lead to. And the real reason for that is what clients need from us, it covers a very wide spectrum. Everything from a 3-week project to perform due diligence on an IT platform that they're considering investing in, right? They just really want like our due diligence report. Very quick, very affordable, and we're done at the end of a few weeks. On the other end of the spectrum, we have ongoing engagements where we are advising clients on a digital transformation journey, an innovation journey, an AI journey,
Mhm.
or we are in some cases serving as a virtual CIO of an organization that is an ongoing leadership role. It just happens that, we're providing it on a contract basis because the organization's at a size that they don't need 40 hours a week of their CIO. They need time spent on the highest leverage value driving functions
Uh-huh.
like negotiation and setting architecture and recruiting and retaining, setting the culture. Those things don't take 40 hours a week.
Right.
A lot of companies, and that's surprising to a lot of people, but depending on your scale, we believe this virtual fractional model is a far better fit, obviously far more affordable than hiring an experienced full-time CIO. Those
Right.
prices just continue to rise because of the scarcity and the uh, just the value of their expertise. Um, but yeah, that wide spectrum I'm talking about
Uh-huh.
of what they need really means if I try to predict or measure the revenue that comes from our marketing functions,
Yes.
it can lead to misleading because that maybe I land one client that is an ongoing sort of virtual CIO engagement that can make that program look really successful when in reality there are others that led to more conversations, and it just so happened that those clients didn't need some sort of ongoing help. So yeah, I measure more sort of the top of the funnel and how many people am I bringing in to speak to? And then we measure our success rate, our batting average, so to speak, on taking them from the top of the funnel to signed engagements. But we don't really set goals for revenue per se, just because of that wide variability.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's interesting, I know, and someone like you that's in the sales training
Oh, that coaching
line of
aspect.
work, I'm sure you are uh, you're itching to share some insights with me, which I would love to do, by the way. Love to hear your thoughts. And I'm 5 years into this, so I try to be very humble and always very open to new ideas to make Innovation Vista better.
Yeah. I mean, we do recommend having revenue goals and we do recommend measuring conversion because sorry, that's where my clients are suffering as well or struggling. They have a lot of marketing, they have a lot of conversations going, but the conversion rate is low.
Yeah.
And that is not converting. At certain point is where they start to struggle. And when the business starts to decline, it starts eating up their a lot of funding and the money. That's where I think they have this problem about we need to do something, otherwise I can't survive.
Yeah.
So that's why our recommendation is always to have some revenue goal and make sure you measure those. So, anyways, that's just my aspect of things. But this is about you, your podcast. So let's move on then to the obstacles part, right? What obstacles do you see with success of your business?
So I think it's mind share, as they call it, just the awareness. We are a 5-year-old firm, and there are a lot of firms we compete with that have been in business 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's some well-known brand names in there. I feel like in many cases they are well known because they've been around a long time, not necessarily because they do great work.
Right.
I think the quality of their work varies depending on the specific consultant that you get
Yeah.
assigned to your account. Uh, and that's the case for us too, but I think our model of really handpicking from that group of 400 plus just leads to a better batting average on that. And literally each and every time we find a great match.
Right.
And that's not always the case with competitors, but they've been around longer, so people know their name. And so when they have a need like this, either they think of it or when they're talking to their colleagues at the Chamber of Commerce or wherever they interact with people and throw out these questions, the names that they get are some of those names that have been more established. So I'm working very hard to continue to get the word out about Innovation Vista via advertising, via content marketing. We put out a lot of our secret sauce even on web articles, webinars, LinkedIn posts. We recently we held a webinar where we shared our approach to developing AI strategy
Mm-hmm.
as an example, and we had a tremendous amount of incoming traffic from that. And I had some friends reach out and say, "You mean, aren't you worried that people are going to see this and they're not going to need your service because you basically explain how you do it?" And I said, look, if all we were selling is the process, I would worry, but we are selling the expertise of
Right.
our consultants and the
There's much
value
more to it.
add of that person or that group of people being in the room when these strategies are being developed.
Right.
I still have tremendous confidence that we drive value and that having us involved is far better than not having us involved.
Right.
Um, and the value of that is far going to surpass our invoice to that client. So, that things like that, we're trying to get the word out and show that we know what we're talking about. We have this tremendous track record of over $1.3 billion of revenue generated for our clients via IT capacities and capabilities, and over $1.1 billion of efficiencies created for clients. And those numbers are continuing to rise with each and every project that gets to the finish line.
That's
So the more
amazing.
people hear about that and realize there is a new option on the block, new, 5-year-old option here on the block, we're worth looking at least. And I would guess that most clients talking to our consultant versus talking to whoever else one of our competitors is going to assign, it is going to be pretty excited about our option.
Yeah, that's great to know. So I know we are over time here, Jeff. So the last question that I have here for you is, what advice would you offer to the aspiring entrepreneurs or the businesses that are facing challenges? I know you
Yeah.
went through quite a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, it's advice that I was offered myself. I certainly have learned some things, but I'm still in the process of learning too. I think that you cannot underestimate uh, the amount of time and the importance of spending that time on branding, marketing, and thinking purposefully about sales. And in particular, your value proposition. Who are going to be your customers? Who are going to need to buy now versus need to buy, in the next 5 years? How
Right,
frequently are they going to need your services? What's the price point that they would be willing to take action? What's it going to cost you to deliver that product or service? Just think about the business model. And it sounds obvious to say that, almost facetious, but I think a lot of businesses fail because the entrepreneur starts a business doing something that they love to do.
right.
And that makes sense. You should love what you do, but you can't only love what you do. It also has to make business sense in all of these other ways. Pricing, margin, market demand. What's your competitive landscape like? How many other firms are there doing what you intend to do? And if it's a regional thing, are there too many in your area already, or is there space for one more? All of those questions are really critical because without really knowing the answer to that, you run the risk of spending a lot of time doing a lot of great work and just not having enough customers or not being able to charge them enough to keep yourself in business. And that is tragic to me that, the best book I know of on this topic is The E-Myth, that just really unpacks this mistake that a lot of people make of missing the importance of understanding branding, marketing, sales, and pricing, those aspects of the business model. I would underscore that. And that's my top advice because I feel like the work that I did on that was critical to start off in a somewhat the right direction. But I also would say I've been humbled and had to make some adjustments on that along the way too, where, I realized I needed to change who I was marketing to, narrow it,
Mm-hmm.
rather than being broad to everyone,
Yeah.
and really think very hard about the pricing question to make sure that, in my case, we're subcontracting these projects. So there's a market price for consulting help that it needs to make sense for them or they won't be interested to subcontract for us anymore. And then from the client's perspective, there's a market price for what they pay for this kind of expertise. And it needs to make sense for them, or else they'll go to a competitor who's offering it for less.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that it sounds very basic, and it is in many ways, but it's harder to answer than you believe it will be.
And how much time did you have to spend on marketing and sales in the beginning?
Oh gosh. Well, it's
Was
funny.
it like
We were
100%?
talking about, I started my business in late 2019.
Uh-huh.
The country and really the world was immediately hit with COVID
Mm-hmm.
immediately thereafter.
Right.
So my first answer was I'm going to spend about a third to half of my time on business development. When COVID hit, there really were almost no clients that had the time or the inclination to talk about strategic IT engagements from spring until fall of 2020. So
Mm-hmm.
I pivoted all of my time to vetting consultants. And I went from probably 50 consultants that I was ready to subcontract to over 300 at that point in the span of about 6 months. And that
Wow.
was a productive use of time that I made early on. After that, and as the world has come back to normal, I think it's become closer to maybe a quarter of my time spent on business development, maybe a
Yeah.
third, depending on the market. And then a tremendous amount of time is spent on research and keeping up with the industry, like we talked about.
Right.
And then I personally try to take care of a client as well, just to keep my skills sharp and to make sure that I'm staying grounded in what actually works out there in the market.
Yeah. I think what you described is a challenge, not only just in the beginning, but also as companies have gone for even, they have been around for 10, 20 years as well.
Yeah.
They still think that they're spending time doing, law work or the IT work rather than doing the business growth. So I can understand that. So thank you very much for your insights here. We were at the last question. Really appreciate your time. This will be very, very useful for my viewers. I know it was an hour of your time, so really appreciate that, Jeff.
Well, likewise, really have enjoyed the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry. What is the website address?
We are innovationvista.com.
Okay.
And there's a contact us form there that we are happy to talk with people, whether you think you need an engagement with us or whether you just want to ask a question and have a conversation. We're happy to take incoming questions on that form on the website.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much again, Jeff.
Thank you.